Xbox just delivered one of its strongest showcases in years, a reminder of the power of its franchise and vision. But behind the excitement, troubling signs are emerging, from rising costs, overextended strategies, and whispers of potential layoffs. The hardware crisis and shifting priorities hint at the company in a reset mode, re-evaluating its future. Even industry-defining IPs are underfunded, leaving fans to wonder if Xbox can truly compete. And now, the unthinkable question looms. Could Xbox itself be sold off as Microsoft rethinks its path forward? Welcome to the Loki POV, and let's talk about it. Now, for the past 100 days, Asha Sharma was appointed as Xbox CEO, and she has been moving the needle for the Xbox brand. From saying all the right things to doing all the right things, from listening and to the fans and actually being transparent, to reducing the price of Game Pass, to actually reintroducing exclusivity. She's been on the right path and she's been healing Xbox as a brand. But for the next 100 days, there are some harsh realities that she made known on Xbox Wire, and this has been the talk of the town for the past week because they had such a great Xbox game showcase, and now they're just again in a crisis mode, if you want to call that. Um, but it is understandable given what they need to do in order to shift, to make the reset. So, in terms of Xbox Wire, right? Asa Sharma and Matt Booty wrote that the next 100 days is an Xbox reset. And they're saying here that there are some harsh realities that they need to navigate. They made 5 statements here. We're going to go through these and we're going to analyze it and I'm going to give my thoughts on it. So, 1. Over 1 billion players choose to play on Xbox and our games each year for a total of 72 billion hours across console, PC, mobile, and streaming, excluding much of China and a few other properties. Our franchises are also among the largest and most beloved globally and are now breaking records in TV and film. Going forward, our competition is attention. Keyword attention. There are more great games, TV series, franchises, creators, content formats, apps, etc. than ever before. So when I read this, first thing that this does is it reiterates the vision that Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond had back in the day, and that is that Xbox is not tied to a console anymore. Xbox is a platform, it is an ecosystem, and that the Xbox brand goes basically, it extends beyond the console. But what does this statement actually mean? So let's break it down. With this statement, Xbox is positioning itself as more than just a gaming company. The emphasis on 72 billion hours across console, PC, mobile, and streaming shows Xbox isn't limiting itself to traditional console means. Instead, it is still committed to cross-platform reach, as they noted that multiplayer games and live service games will remain cross-platform. I agree, that's the best strategy because those games live and survive on player counts, and the more platforms it's on, the better its survival rate. However, Xbox is framing itself as a broader entertainment ecosystem. So furthermore, Xbox is highlighting that franchises are breaking records in TV and film, and this signals a deliberate move into a multimedia entertainment and not just interactive gaming. And by stating our competition is attention, Xbox is acknowledging that it's competing not only with other games but also TV series, apps, and content formats, and that it is a clear entertainment industry mindset. Then the reference to over 1 billion players positions Xbox as a mass entertainment platform comparable to streaming services or social media rather than a niche gaming brand. Remember when the Microsoft CEO stated that they are competing with TikTok? This is even more evident now. So the statement reiterates Xbox's intent to be seen as a comprehensive entertainment platform, but it is not abandoning gaming. Gaming will still remain at its core, but it's broadening its narrative to include film, TV, and cross device engagement, aligning itself with companies like Netflix or Disney in the fight for consumer attention. As they've always stated, they wanted Game Pass to basically be the Netflix of gaming. And this is still the aim and the push forward. Now let's go on to statement 2. We will end this fiscal year at about a 3% accountability margin, down year over year, excluding Activision Blizzard King. Over the past 5 years, we have spent over $20 billion on ongoing investments in our content, platform, and hardware subsidy. But our annual revenue has declined nearly $500 million during that time. Going forward, this cannot continue. So this statement is basically a financial warning and a strategic pivot. So the 3% accountability margin, which was previously 30%, refers to profitability after accounting for costs. So it's low, and they admit that it's down year over year, meaning that their profitability is shrinking. Now they spent over $20 billion in the past 5 years alone, excluding the Activision Blizzard King acquisition, on content, platform development, and subsidizing hardware. Subsidy here means selling consoles at a loss or reduced margin to grow the ecosystem. Now, despite these massive investments, the annual revenue has actually dropped by nearly $500 million. And that's a red flag for Xbox, because they are spending more but they are earning less. Then the phrase "going forward, this cannot continue," it is a clear signal. Xbox is saying that with the current trajectory, pouring billions into growth while revenue shrinks is not viable. They need to change strategy, either by cutting costs, finding new revenue streams, or restructuring how they subsidize hardware or content. So in short, Xbox is acknowledging that its current business model is financially unsustainable. They've been investing heavily to expand the ecosystem by buying all these gaming studios, but the returns haven't matched the spend. And this statement basically sets out the stage for tighter financial discipline and possibly a shift in priorities, whether that's focusing on profitability, diversifying revenue beyond gaming, or rethinking subsidies. And I think this is basically where we are looking at a potential restructure, potential closure of maybe gaming studios, departments within Xbox. Look, it's a shitty thing. It's never an easy thing to have layoffs. It seems that they seeing that this is the only way forward to reposition the brand. But with that being said, let's continue with statement 3. We are in a hardware component crisis. When I joined as CEO in February, the price we paid for console storage components was over 2 times as high as we paid last fall. These costs have since doubled again, and as we plan for the 2027 holiday season, we expect another significant increase, taking us over 5 times the prices we paid only 2 years earlier. Memory costs have followed a broadly similar trajectory. While the entire industry is facing a component crisis, we believe we have been impacted more greatly than many of our peers due to the choices we made over the last half decade. We are currently unable to make as many consoles as players want to buy, and we need a new business model and partnerships for hardware as we remain committed to Helix. So this tells me that they do have plans to stick to releasing the new Xbox come end of 2027. So basically Xbox here, they are laying out a serious supply chain and cost crisis that is going to directly impact the hardware business. And what they're saying here is that storage and memory costs have skyrocketed, right? So 5 times higher than 2 years ago. And that is catastrophic. Not would be, it would be, and it is catastrophic to the business model where they're already selling consoles at a slim margin or at a loss. They're acknowledging the entire industry is facing the rising component costs, but they stress that Xbox is hit harder because of the choices that they made in the past. Yeah. Not investing in the IP, not keeping exclusivity to their brand. Maybe it's things like this, but they're likely referring to design decisions, supply contracts, or reliance on specific hardware configurations. Then they also admit that they cannot produce enough consoles to meet demand, and that is no longer just about profitability, but it's also about availability. So players want consoles, but Xbox can't manufacture them at a scale under current cost conditions. In the line, we need a new business model and partnerships for hardware signals a pivot. Xbox is saying that the traditional console subsidy model, selling hardware cheap to grow the ecosystem, is unsustainable under these cost pressures. And then, by reaffirming commitment to Helix, they tying this crisis to their broader strategic vision. So Helix likely represents the long-term ecosystem strategy, cloud services across device play, which may reduce reliance on console hardware as the sole gateway. So Xbox is basically warning that hardware economics are broken. Rising costs and supply shortages mean they can't keep selling consoles the way they have. They're preparing to restructure the hardware strategy, likely leaning more on partnerships, cloud services, and alternative devices to keep players in the Xbox ecosystem without being bottlenecked by console production. So, the way I see it, again, it reiterates point one that it's not just tied to a console, but it is an ecosystem. It is a platform. Remember, anything can be your Xbox. But at the same time, I feel like they might be looking at other alternatives to make the production of the next Xbox actually cheaper. But then again, man, Microsoft and other big tech firms have played a major part and driving force in the recent surge of RAM costs. So Microsoft basically shot themselves in the foot, and now Xbox is feeling the pressure of it as well. But with that being said, let's move on to the next statement. We expanded our studio system when we needed a pipeline of content to meet multiple strategies across subscription, streaming, and devices. In the process, we have found ourselves overextended as we executed on changing strategies in a landscape of more readily available content. We are the fortunate stewards of industry-defining franchises that have enormous potential and player demand, but we have not adequately funded them to compete and win. That's for damn sure. At the same time, as we saw this past weekend at the showcase, a reliable pipeline of first and third party exclusives and new IP are critical to our success. We need to reassess the balance between these and our investment priorities for the next 5 years. So, simply reading this, like I said in the previous video, Xbox has become aware that for the brand to survive, they do need exclusive content. They do need exclusive content to draw people into the ecosystem and as well as to retain the existing player base. Because if they don't retain that, they are in trouble. So let's break it down further. So Xbox is acknowledging that they basically had a strategic misstep in how it scaled its studio system and allocated resources. That Xbox grew its network of studios to feed multiple strategies such as Game Pass, streaming, and devices. The idea was to ensure that there was a steady pipeline of content across all fronts. By doing so and purchasing all these studios, right, they spread themselves too thin. They were constantly shifting strategies in a market where content is more abundant than ever, thanks to indie developers, multi-platform releases, and third-party publishers. This left Xbox stretched, and they were unable to maximize investments. Then, despite owning industry-defining IP such as Halo and Gears, Xbox admits that it hasn't adequately funded them to compete and win. This is a candid admission that the biggest franchises have not been given the resources needed to dominate the market, and this is so true. They currently own Elder Scrolls, one of the biggest franchises ever. They own Fallout. When last have we seen a new installment of these games? It's been years. They own it for the past couple of years, yet we are yet to see anything of Elder Scrolls 6. We are yet to see a new Fallout. Not even mentioning existing IP, they've completely butchered Halo. I digress. Furthermore, they highlight that a reliable stream of exclusive and new IP, both first party and third party, is critical. The showcase reference underscores that exclusive remain the bloodline of console ecosystems. Now, look, as much as I love games to be multi-platform, right, not tied by a specific um, piece of tech in order to play them, I gotta admit that for a brand and building up a brand of faith and goodwill, and that it comes from exclusive content. You need something exclusive to your brand where somebody knows that they can only get it from there. Now, before God of War came to PC, where was the only place you could play God of War? On PlayStation. And that is why I have to commend PlayStation, because they built their brand up with their IP. They took care of their IP. You get what I'm saying? So Xbox needs to pivot and they need to shift back into that. Yes, it might not be great in the short run, but for the long run, for the brand to survive, it might be the best decision. In the closing line in the statement signals a reassessment. Xbox is saying it must balance how much it invests in existing franchises versus new IP, and how it aligns those investments with subscription, streaming, and device strategies over the next 5 years. True. So basically, they're admitting that they expanded too broadly without enough focus. Their flagship franchises are underfunded, weakening their competitive edge, and that exclusive and new IPs are critical, but that the current pipeline isn't strong enough. The current pipeline is strong enough, it just wasn't utilized correctly, and that they need to reprioritize investments to ensure that studios deliver consistent, high quality content that supports Game Pass, streaming, and devices. Right. So, again, imagine with the acquisition of Activision, had Xbox in that first month released all the Call of Duties onto Game Pass, they would have seen a nice flow of nice flow increase in Game Pass subscriptions. Imagine all those old Call of Duties live on Game Pass. All the players, those servers are up for multiplayer and everything. Players can jump back in and relive great Call of Duties. What would that not have done for the brand? Spyro again, we're only seeing a new Spyro now only. How long have they owned Activision? Where's Sekiro 2? Again, they're not utilizing the IPs that they spend so much money on. So how do you expect to see a turn in profits if you don't utilize the IP? But I digress. Let's go on to the next statement. And this is the final one. Right? And the final one, they're saying that our current platform infrastructure is not built for the battle ahead. Our systems are overly complex, spanning hundreds of dependencies, which hinders our ability to move fast. We've become too reliant on vendors to operate our systems and must become more self-reliant as an engineering culture to build for the future. We must increase the value we ship to players while decreasing the time it takes to do so. Are they referring to the time it takes to deliver games? Interesting. Going forward, we'll evolve and rebuild our stack and look at capabilities across all Xbox and potential M&A to help us win in hardware, PC, mobile, and streaming. What does this actually mean? So Xbox here is admitting that its technical foundation is basically outdated and overly complex, and that it needs a major rebuild to stay competitive. So Xbox is saying that the system spans hundreds of dependencies, which slows them down. This means Xbox infrastructure is tangled. Too many interconnected systems make it hard to innovate quickly or ship updates efficiently. They are admitting that they are too dependent on external vendors to operate their systems, and that it's risky because it limits control, flexibility, and speed. So they want to shift towards being a more stronger, self-relying engineering culture, building more in-house capabilities. And then the goal is to deliver more value to players faster. Right now, the complexity and vendor reliance slow down how quickly Xbox can roll out new features, fixes, or innovations, and games. Do not forget that. And then the term evolve and rebuild our stack means a fundamental overhaul of Xbox's technical infrastructure, likely simplifying dependencies, modernizing systems, and integrating cloud native approaches. Now, M&A opportunities. They explicitly mention mergers and acquisitions as part of the plan, but this suggests Xbox may buy companies with expertise in hardware, PC, mobile, or streaming to strengthen its ecosystem and accelerate the rebuild or the reset. Now, M&A, I don't think they're referring to purchasing more gaming publishers. I don't think they're referring to that. They're referring to making acquisitions that could help build a stronger um, internal team for like hardware, streaming, things like that, things to strengthen, and possibly mergers with tech companies that could basically ensure that the production of the console, of the new console, would be cheaper or better. Who knows? Who knows? But as look, at the end of the day, it seems they are in for a tough time for the people at Xbox. It seems they're in for a radical change. But like I said, it's not an easy thing to go through, but it's maybe something that the business needs to go through, because maybe, as I've seen online, there are some articles talking about Microsoft wanting to sell Xbox. And maybe that was on the table given the current state that Xbox is in. But with Asha coming in and the changes she's implemented, the way she's moved the needle so far, they've probably given her a timeline to rebuild the brand, save the brand, and see from there. And unfortunately, I just don't want to see more game publishers that they've purchased close down. But at the end of the day, they need to do what they need to do in order to get Xbox back to where they were. And if the plan is to be the number one publisher, they've got a lot of heavy lifting to do. But so far, man, it's a real crisis at the moment going on at Xbox. But let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think? Do you think that the new Xbox is going to be fairly priced? Because I remember Sarah Bond at the time said that the new Xbox is going to be more of an enthusiast system. And when they say that, you're talking about PC prices, eh? What's it going to be in the current landscape of hardware? What do you think? Do you think what this plan that they're speaking about of resetting Xbox is actually going to fix Xbox, or is going to pivot them in the right direction? Do you think that Asa Sharma is actually the correct person for the job? Do you think that she could carry out and save Xbox as a brand? Let me know down in the comments down below, guys. Let me know. Let's get talking in the comments. But with that being said, guys, do hit that subscribe button for more gaming discussion videos like this, for more retrospectives, for more first impressions, and I do appreciate the support. And until next time, guys, happy gaming, and I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.